Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from group 2 and in this video we are going to talk about one of the subtopic of social linguistic and education, that is social dialect and education. But before we jump into the material, first I want to explain about what is social linguistic and education. Okay, social linguistic and education is a topic that deal with the relationship among social linguistic, education, and social justice. There are three main topics in this chapter. First, we will look at issues of social dialect and how ways of speaking associated with lower socioeconomic classes and ethnic groups are often viewed as disadvantageous in education. Second, we will consider issues of multilingualism in education. Again, noting that there is a history in many places of viewing minority languages as a disadvantageous in terms of education. Finally, we will examine educational issues involved in the growth of English worldwide. All three of these topics involve the concept of linguistic inequality, which is defined by Bonin, 2013, as the unequal social valuation of particular ways of speaking, which, due to indexical nature of language, reproduces wider social, culture, and economic inequalities. So that's about social linguistic and education. Let's begin the discussion about social dialect and education.
Structured and elaborated coach. Bernstein's view of the relationship between language and culture was influenced by his reading of Worf. Bernstein regards language as something that influences culture and is in turn influenced by culture. A child who grows up in a particular linguistic and culture environment learns the language of the environment and culture, and then pass on that learning to the next generation. Therefore, Bernstein's special is the very different kinds of language used by different social groups. He claims that there are two very different kinds of language spoken in society. He called it one very complex code and the other limited code. According to Bernstein, code does have very different purposes. For example, the code being translated is used as a device for conjunction and subordination. Using preposition to indicate temporal and logical relationships. According to Bernstein, 1961 to 1609, the quote described is the use of language, which indicates the proficiency inherent in complex concepts here has for the organization of experience.
Elaborated code. Elaborated code term used refers to a variety of language which is used in the more formal situation, characterized in part by not being relied on relegating codex to different meaning, compared with restrict code. Of particular concern to Bernstein, therefore, are the few different types of language that different social groups employ. He claims that there are two quite distinct varieties of language in use in society. He calls one variety elaborated code and the other variety restated code. According to Bernstein, these codes have very different characteristics. For example, elaborated code makes use of accurate in the sense of standard, grammatical order, and syntax to regulate what is said, use complex sentences that employ a range of devices for conjunction and subordination. Employ prepositions to show relationship of both a temporally and a logical nature. So frequent use of the pronoun are used with carry a wide range of adjective and adverb, and allow for remarks to be qualified.
As we all know that every language has its own varieties or uniqueness, unfortunately, many people assume that this difference that exists could be interpreted as a lack of certain languages. For example, we can see the varieties of Munanese and Bhutanese. As an educator, we might will see these situations in the classroom or in fields of educations. We cannot regard that one of these languages is better than another. That's why many linguists believe that language should not be an issue at all in educations. They regard that all of varieties of language are equal, and said that what should we be going to do is just teaching people to be tolerant and accepting to another varieties of languages.
Di sini saya akan membahas tentang the role of home dialect in education. Jadi pada tahun 2007 itu Siegel membahas tentang penggunaan bahasa Kreol dan juga varietas yang tidak standar dalam pendidikan, menunjukkan banyaknya masalah dengan pelarangan home dialect atau home language. Hal ini dianggap sebagai kerugian sosial, kognitif, dan juga psikologi karena mereka diberitahu bahwa cara berbicara mereka dan juga keberadaan mereka yang seperti itu tidak diinginkan dalam konteks pendidikan. Nah, di sini Siegel menguraikan ada 3 cara berbeda di mana home dialect dapat dimasukkan dalam pengajaran atau instruction atau education. Yang pertama yaitu dalam program instrumental. Dalam program instrumental, bahasa sebenarnya digunakan untuk pengajaran. Misalnya untuk penggunaan talk fixing di sekolah-sekolah di Papua New Guinea. Kemudian yang kedua yaitu in accommodation program. Program akomodasi di sini menunjukkan tugas-tugas tertentu seperti menulis kreatif dan juga ekspresi lisan, yang mana hal ini dilakukan dalam home dialect seperti dalam reformasi pendidikan menengah di Jamaika. Kemudian yang ketiga yaitu awareness program, program penyadaran, yang mana program ini meliputi kegiatan akomodasi tetapi juga melibatkan pembelajaran eksplisit tentang variasi bahasa yang berbeda dan proses sosial yang melaluinya dari satu dialek yang menjadi standar. Nah, program awareness ini juga mencakup komponen kontrastif di mana siswa belajar tentang sifat yang diatur oleh aturan di semua dialek.
African American Vernacular English, or AAVE, is a variation of the English language which consists of distinctive characteristics such as phonological, morphological, semantic, syntactic, and lexical order. There has been widespread misunderstanding in the United States about AAVE, both of its characteristic and of how it is used. AAVE was not just different from standard. In this view, children who spoke AAVE suffered from verbal deprivation or had no language, and it was the duty and responsibility of educators to supply them with one. Labov and others have been severely critical of such views, believing that they completely misrepresent the linguistic abilities of black children. Thus, children speak a variety of English which is different from the standard favored by educators, but it is neither deficient nor unsystematic. To assume that such children cannot affirm, negate, categorize, or think logically because they perform poorly and certain extremely inhibiting testing situation is absurd. They must use language all the time in order to get by, and any fair test of language ability shows them to be as skilled as any other children. I think that's all from me. Thank you very much.